Hi everyone, welcome back to Rebecca's Random Adventures, and we are continuing this series on learning how to watercolor basics from someone who's learning watercolor myself. When I started out, I followed tutorials. I learned how to do florals, landscapes, paint different cute objects, and as I went, I realized that there were techniques that I could pick up from these videos and figure out how to create my own designs, paint things that I wanted to paint. If you want to start painting your own designs, or if you want to turn photographs into paintings, it really isn't that difficult if you follow one simple rule. Think of watercolor as being as easy as coloring. It is as easy as coloring. Sometimes it's easier because you can fill in a big piece of space really quickly with a nice brush. You have more flexibility in terms of the colors. You can blend and mix colors, and there's texture. You have granulation. You have different colors of paint like pink and blue merging to form purple. You have that beautiful gradient. You really don't have to do a lot of work because the watercolor does the work for you. So that is what we're going to explore today. We're going to take basic shapes and we're going to make cute watercolors out of them. So here's some leftover watercolor paper that I had from cutting out these 4x6 pieces. I will be using this to demonstrate different shapes. You might not want something so narrow if you need a little bit more room. Let's say you're doing a heart shape. I like painting things really small so I don't have to stress about details, but I probably recommend something at least 3 to 4 inches wide. Okay, and besides watercolor paper, we will need a pencil, a sharpener, an eraser. You can get one of these, which is a Pigma Micron pen, and this really helps to outline and ink anything that you draw. And sometimes what I do is if I feel the painting isn't quite clear enough what I was trying to draw, I use this too. And watercolor combined with ink has a really nice effect. And then these, and I will only be using basic colors today, primary colors, just to show you that you don't need a fancy range of colors. So like I said before, you need black, a deep red and a pinkish red, like a lighter red, a deep yellow and a light yellow, and a deep like a Prussian blue and a light blue like a cobalt blue. That's all I'm using. I will be mixing them on my pre-existing paint palette. I keep everything here, I mix everything here, and this is just to not waste any paint really. Okay, so let's get started. Now let's start with something really easy. Let's do it on this. I am just going to draw a square, and it's not a very perfect square or square. In fact, it's more of a rectangle at the moment. So draw a shape, any shape, with a pencil. And now you can take that shape and just lightly kind of make it into just a suggestion of a shape. You don't need to have it super clear. Make sure your page is not too dirty. Make sure, because watercolor may not necessarily cover all of what you've drawn. So that's enough for me. I want to try and paint a square, and I want the colors to go from light blue to pink. So I already have cobalt blue here. I'm going to take some Crimson Lake, it's my pink shade, and pop just a little bit here. Right. Let's take lots of water. So number one rule of watercolor painting is never paint with thick paint. You want your paint to be watered down and light. Sometimes you probably might need it thicker if you're drawing specific shapes. If you're like, for example, these background parts of the image who are painted with very watery light shades, whereas something here is done with very thick color. But you never scoop up thick, like acrylic type, you know, a thick gel-like consistency of paint and just smear it on. Like that's not what you do. That's wasteful. You want everything very light. So let's start with 1/2, and we are just going to paint that, and then we are going to fill it in with water. And before it dries too much, I'm just going to dab off the rest of the paint and get my pink, and I'm going to paint it on this side. I like that wateriness. Okay, see, I'm not going for a perfect square here, but that's okay. Now you notice I'm only really painting this half and this half because I'm gonna go in with my brush and I'm gonna go in with just water and let these two colors merge and blend. And that is so pretty to me. Look at that, like the kind of shades that are created. Let's add a bit more. You can dab on a bit more blue, you can dab on a bit more pink. Now I'm gonna do that again, but with a circle this time. You might want to try free-forming with your brush, and you might not. It's totally up to you. I'm going to pre-wet the surface, and the pre-wetting of the surface prevents, say, the blue from forming a really hard line and the red from forming a really hard line. So this time we're going to pre-wet the surface inside the circle. And let's do blue and some green. I already have some green up here mixed from previously, but let's grab some blue and mix it with the yellow here, and let's pretend it was just yellow with no green. Okay, so let's have some green and some blue and just like dab them around. Dab some green here. It's a bit of a planet maybe, and then we have blue, and we're interspersing the blue with the green. And you know what, it's gotten a little muddy. It's mixed it up a little too much, and that's okay. Look, I probably should have started with the blue, but let's remove some of that. Wet, well, the surface is already wet and maybe I don't want it too wet, but let's wet it again, dry it off one more time, and go in with blue again. Okay. Somewhat. And now with the green, and we're gonna intersperse that in there. Okay, it's not exactly like a planet, but you can see we've basically colored in. Oh, look. Yeah, we basically colored in two colors and let them mix together in a shape. So we have a square, we have a circle. Let's do a heart. So we're getting like from easy to complex. And let us try, let's see if we can do a heart without a pencil. Now again, it can be like coloring, it doesn't have to be. I'm going to mix up a purple, and the purple, it's going to be one side of the heart. Okay. Think of a paintbrush like a pencil. Or nowadays we have brush pens. You can think of it like a brush pen. That's easy. Right, we have made that shape. And really what I wanted to do with that is to actually have some colors blend together. So I'm going to dab up some of the color. I have no rhyme or plan for what I'm doing, and honestly that's what makes it fun, in my opinion. Okay, I can use the paintbrush, dry it off a little, and dab off some of that pink. You can see it works like a what do you call that, toilet paper would. And then I can even put in a little bit of blue. Maybe if it's too much blue, I can mush it around, blend it, who knows. There we go. Okay, we've done 3 basic shapes. This one has kind of turned into just green. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna dab up some of it and be like, okay, let's go in with some blue and swirl it around as well. Oops, we have made the circle bigger. That is okay. When you get better at doing brush strokes, you will be able to do shapes with those strokes. I'm going to show you that. When you have some control between thick and thin, you can go from a thin line. Let's do a leaf. We're going to go from a thin point to hollowing out space in the middle of the brush and coming to another thin point. And then I'm going to go with some green on the brush, and we're going to go from a thick point, spread out the belly of the brush, and then go back to a point. And it does take control, it does take some practice, it takes I would say it takes having a good brush too. So these Princeton Select brushes, I think, are a good mix because they are beginner friendly. Alright. Notice that I filled it out with a little bit of green there, and then I'm gonna go in some red on this side and make it like a little autumn type of leaf. So that's a leaf. Simple, easy leaf over there. Oh, look at that. When did I do that? I tend to do things like that. Use your brush. If you use cold pressed paper, you have a nice kind of ability to lift paint. Yeah, and you know what? If the heart is just a little bit sad, we can patch it up. Yeah, there we go. So we've done the 4th shape. Now let's move on. Let's actually go in this direction so I don't smear anything else. Let us move on to doing an object. Well, now we have to go about this way. Let's cut this off and start with a new piece. We've done some shapes. We practice controlling the brush. Now it's a little too blue. What is it with me and my blending skills today? It's a bit too blue, so I'm going to go in with some green. Now that we have done 4 basic shapes, you can keep practicing those. Try doing freehand and try filling in an outline such as a pencil outline. So it's either, you know, freeform creating shapes like this leaf, or painting, coloring in an outline like with this pencil. And like you can see, this is, to me, a lot more fun than coloring because we've got those custom colors and the colors blending into each other. So let's do a cupcake. This is how I do a cupcake. I start with a kind of like triangle at the top, and what we're going to do is we're going to have a swirl. So let's take that and make a curved line in. Now the next one, I'm going to vary it, so it's going to come out a little shorter than the first shape that went in, and next one, and next one, and next one. And so we get that swirl that goes all the way around, sort of. It's not perfect, but we'll fix it as we go. And then I do 2 lines narrowing at the bottom and a slightly curved bottom, and that's just a very, very simple cupcake. So what we're gonna do is use an eraser and lighten it until it's as light as it can be, and then let's figure out what colors we want. So this is going to be a little bit of a dry on wet technique. Let's do a pink base, purple base. Let's do purple. I think purple is fun. So purple, same purple as before. You're just gonna go around here and draw color in the base of the cupcake. And now for the top, I want I'm gonna try and create a chocolate color? No, I think of vanilla. So I've got yellow. I'm gonna pick up some red and mix it with the yellow here already on my palette. Actually, let's add some lemon yellow. Try saying those words very quickly. Lemon yellow, lemon yellow. And make it into like an orange color, and when you dilute the orange it becomes a peach. And then we add lots of water over there. More water. So now I've got kind of like an orange base. I'm going to try and create my swirls by drawing those in like that. And there we go. And then we just fill it in with more water on the brush. And I find the top a little bit like too dark in color, as well as the bottom. So now it's still wet. We can take some toilet paper and dab it off just a little bit. It's so cute! I love it! Look at that! That just has like a very nice... I would almost add a little bit more yellow to that shade. So let's do that. Let's add some yellow. But I love it. And you know what? When it's like this, you can add more details on top. You can play with... So this is called kind of a glaze. I'm glazing another color on top to adjust the shade. And not only to adjust the shade, but to also give some variation. So I'm not filling it in completely. I'm going to let it set just a little bit. And dab. There we go. So it has a slight yellowish tint. There we go. Now, I like the fact that this is slightly kind of darker, and to emphasize that kind of curve of the swirl. So I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to vary the swirl. Yeah. Now, we can almost add brown on top of that by mixing red and green, and that gives it like, it's like a cool kind of chocolate color. So it's not really vanilla anymore. It's more chocolate, but I like it. So we're going with that. I don't actually like it because it's a little bit too green of a brown. So I'm gonna dab it up and try again. Yeah, okay. That works. Now, the base of the cupcake should be dry by now, so I'm actually gonna go in with some blue. You can draw lines. You can draw lines to make it look more like wrinkly cupcake paper, and depending on how dry the watercolor is, it's kind of semi-dry, so this is like in between painting wet on wet and wet on dry. And there you go. And you could also, like, I could fade the blue just a little bit, and so that I could add a texture and like draw a heart, but I think I'm gonna leave it as is. This is cute, you know. When this is dry, you could even paint like a strawberry or paint little sprinkles on there. That's an option, but you've just painted a cupcake. That's not too difficult, is it? You know, we could do a mug. Since we're on a food theme, draw a very narrow oval, and then 2 lines coming down from that. You could make the bottom kind of like just a curved line like that, and draw a handle for your mug. I actually kind of want to give it like a curved shape, maybe. Nah, I don't like that. Let's try that again, but you get the idea. It's a cylinder. You're drawing a cylinder. strong cylinder. And comes down. Maybe I'll just make it just widen just a little bit at the bottom, and then have a cute little handle. Now if you just made the point tippy, like the edge here come to a point, like a little tippy tip, that makes it into a jug. Okay, let's have a little blue mug. Again, just take that and lighten it with an eraser. And you can erase more of around it when you are done and go in like a little more aggressively maybe. So with the cup you have the outline of the cup. You fill it in while it's still wet so that everything blends together. You draw your little handle, and then you draw something like this on top. You can leave the inside white if you want. Right. And if you want it to be lighter, you could have used a little bit more water in your original blend. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to dab out some of the center and do a design in the middle. Remember that heart earlier? Maybe we could try painting a heart. Okay, so a cupcake, a mug. What can we do next? Maybe a plant, a potted plant. Let's do a cactus, maybe. So a plant pot is the same as the cupcake, except there's also like a little, what is this? There's a little lip on top. And maybe coming out of this is like a little prickly cactus with a flower on it. It's getting a little overly detailed, but let's roll. I don't think I like that. Let's just do, since we talked about leaves earlier, let's do a free-form bunch of leaves coming out of the pot. So I'm not going to bother to really lighten it, because we're going to paint it over with brown orange. I've mixed orange with some existing black on my palette to make a brown. That's one way to make a brown. And I'm going to outline it. One way you could do this is to like fill it in, leave a white spot, and then add water to that light spot, and then you have some gradation. That's a possibility. And again, it's a little too dark. What is it with me today? So I'm going to dab out some. Oh, it's so nice, like just a variation between dark and light. That's so watercolory. I keep doing this. Okay. And some dark. Okay. I feel like there's not a good in between, so I'm gonna go in with some orangey. This is getting messy. Okay, we will leave it there for now. Let's go back and do that heart shape. So whatever you did here, you can do the same thing except smaller on the face of this cup. And your cup doesn't have to be as small as this. This is just what I'm doing. Okay, that's what we have. Now, let's get some green, some light greenish green, and paint some leaves growing out of the pot. So straight, fine line, that's part of the control. Now, same technique as that earlier. Drawing a leaf and bringing it down. Oh, that is so cute! That is such a like beautiful, cute spring thing. Now I'm gonna do one last thing to really challenge myself because I'm not good at it. I'm going to try and do a 5-petal flower. And you might laugh, you can't do a 5-petal flower? For some reason, I somehow never seem to get them quite right when free-forming them with watercolor. So I'm going to do it with an outline here. Let's do a yellow 5-petal flower with a brown interior. And just brush, 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 brush. Okay, let's start. No, let's do a red interior. Let's be really like, cheesy and do that classic yellow flower with a white interior. Now imagine you could just do it as if you were coloring and just fill in that shape. Or you could do it more as if you were freeform painting and really use the whole brush to kind of create that shape. Probably should have cleaned off my eraser marks, but okay. Right, so that's the 5-petal flower. And now we're just going to take some of the red and we're just going to dot it in the already wet center and see what happens. And maybe some nice like orange gradation will be created. So let's just dot it into the center. I love it. That's so fun. You see that little granulation and color mixing happening? We go in with some brown right in the middle for some dimension and maybe just a little bit of a hint of blue in the center. And you know what? While we are at it, I'm going to take some of the red and mix it with some of the yellow. Create maybe a slight orangey shade. I don't know. And then just, okay, that looks kind of weird now actually. But if I went along the outside in an outline kind of way, and then filled it in with water, that might do something really interesting. So if you don't like the colors that have come out and you've mixed too many colors and it's kind of gotten messy, toilet paper to your rescue and it's all nice back to yellow. So we can go in with the red again, more crimson. Lots of water, little bit of paint. And dot, dot, dot. I might have gone for actually, you know what? Let's get rid of that. Let's do purple, because purple in the center of red and blue is really pretty. Let's go for a blue influenced purple. Actually, those little dots are kind of nice if we mix them with purple. I love it. Yeah. Yes, this is what I want. So we've got pink dots, purple dots, and now some even darker purple dots, just a bit more to give it some dimension. And let's go in with some deep yellow along the outside, because I think it will give it some dab, dab, just to blend out the colors. Dab, dab, and dab. Yes! So this is starting to take shape. I'm gonna grab some pink and try to define the petals a little bit. I'm going to lighten it in a little bit, as you will see. But it's kind of nice to have just a little bit of variation, a little bit of maybe leaving some of it still on the tip of the flower. Okay, finally, a lot of flowers have indentations towards the middle, and I want to be able to draw those out. So there we go. I don't know what kind of flower this is, but it is some kind, an invented kind perhaps. Let's just dabby mix up. Well, looky here. We have created 8 different shapes. Now, you may not have created the same shapes that I did, and that is totally okay. But I wanted to show you that you can go from a square to a cupcake or a flower, and it's so fun, so easy. Think of watercolor like coloring in shapes. Coloring. Now, you can take a photograph that you really love and you can turn that into an outline. Draw the outline in with pencil and then paint it in, and keep doing that until you can create lifelike, realistic portraits of people, of landscapes, etc. And really, it is a learning journey, let me tell you. I was not good at a lot of these. Like, some would come out great by accident, some would come out like atrocious, in my opinion anyway, and that's totally fine. Here is what you can do with an ink pen. The Pigma Micron is really great because it is waterproof. So you can actually draw first, paint later, or you can paint first and draw later. Actually, we can test that. So I can draw, like for example, just a little simple flower, let's say. Okay, this is a very ugly flower. Well, let's take that. And I want to color it in. You will notice that the black does not mix with the pink here because the ink. Oops. So you notice my watercolor paints are mixing, but the actual ink from the pen itself is not mixing with the rest of these colors, simply because it is a waterproof pen and I like it a lot. Alright, so let's put that aside and let's do some inking to bring out some details. You can do so many things. You can let your creativity run free. Right, let's start with the flower. You can draw the outline of the flower. It doesn't even have to follow whatever you've painted exactly. Sometimes it's nice if there's a little bit of like a mismatch. You can draw a little something in the center. I'm not even sure I'm doing a really good job on making this any better, but it's just to show you this is what you can do. There you go. Okay, So these are some of the possibilities. You can take the leaf and draw things on top of it to make it into a more leafy leaf, so to speak. There you go. Different things that you can try and you can do. So let your imagination run free, enjoy the process, and experiment with watercolor.